see.
Right.
Have you ever had liquid death?
I have
Okay.
once. Was surprised to find out it was water as well. I think that's
Yeah.
the general consensus.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Sick.
We good? All right. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Creative Point of View podcast. My name is Ethan,
Noah.
Marquis?
and today we have fashion designer, apparel designer, Rylie. Go ahead, Noah.
Yeah. So Riley's a good friend of mine and supporter of the podcast. And yeah, like Ethan said, apparel designer, entrepreneur. And so, yeah, super stoked to have you on today.
Yes,
And
yes.
we're just going to let you kind of go off and just tell everyone about yourself and who you are, where you're from.
Yeah, well, I feel like that's probably the most difficult question, to be honest.
Yeah.
To just start off, like, who are you?
Yeah.
Like you guys said, I'm a fashion designer and an entrepreneur, but I've actually spent the last 3 years away from kind of all of those things to figure out who I actually was without that. So I kind of like started really, really young and knowing exactly what I wanted to do. And I dove into that very quickly in life, which is like a blessing and a curse because like a lot of people spend a lot of time trying to find what that thing is that they're passionate about, that they want to spend their life doing. And I had that early, but I kind of neglected a lot of different aspects of my life that I kind of now like post-college, post-grad, like course corrected and like just mental health, physical health, and all of those things. So I'm like now just getting really back into it, like spending a lot of that time like soul searching and meditating and doing those things that like, so the short version is apparel designer, entrepreneur, but the long version is now like friend, collaborator, you know, just more like personal growth and development and like making sure I have all those things under my belt. So when I go back in like deep, that I don't lose any of the stuff, the foundational things that I've built. So
Dang, that's good.
That's good.
yeah,
That's a
so
really
I'm
good
like,
intro right there.
Yeah. As far as
yeah.
intros go, that hits deep. That's really good.
Yeah.
I mean, like, because it's more than just like, I don't know. As creatives, our creativity and like what we do is often tied to who we are. So
Yeah.
that's really cool.
oh, for sure.
Yeah.
So you said you kind of knew what you wanted to do at a really young age. So what age were you when you kind of
Yeah.
came to that realization?
I was 5.
Wow.
Yo.
Crap. Wow.
Yeah, so it is a crazy like realization that I had like at a very young age. So I actually had ALL leukemia, I had cancer when I was 5. And a lot of my time was spent, waiting for an appointment. And the craft lady would come around, like while I was waiting. So I was painting, I was drawing, I was like making all this stuff with my hands. And it was like not long after like doing that became one a coping mechanism. It like soothed me. It fueled me creatively. And like I transitioned from like wanting, for a minute at a time, I wanted to be an engineer when I was 5 because I was like, I like building toys. I like doing that kind of thing. But then it like quickly shifted to fashion design. And I made like my first business card when I was like 7 for like my store and like that kind of thing.
crazy.
So
Young creative.
yeah.
Okay. So then, growing up, in like now into like high school and like all that, did you do any classes that helped you propel deeper into fashion?
Yeah. Well, so there wasn't a lot. So I grew up in Cedar Rapids, Iowa.
Oh, no way.
And
Cool.
very, very surprised with Des Moines and how creative it is here. It's like so pleasantly surprised when I moved here. But in Cedar Rapids, I didn't find a lot of like things that like fueled young people's creativity. They have a lot more now, which is awesome. But me and one of my very creative friends, her name's Sarah Wright, and in high school we would like make videos together and we would do different stuff, and we're like, our high school really needs like something creative to do. So we founded a magazine called Identity Magazine, and we started recruiting the photographers, the models, the writers, and even just people interested in publication and like the process of getting a magazine produced. And all those things. We took field trips, all that stuff. So we really like just kind of cultivated our own creative community very young. It went on for like years after we had graduated. I don't think they do it now, but it definitely was like a big thing that I saw a lot of students from our high school that did that also go on to Iowa State University, which is where I went, to do Trend Magazine, which was like a big reason I went to Iowa State in the first place. Was we both were like, we're going to go to Iowa State. We're going to be the editors-in-chief of Trend. And that's like what we did. So, yeah.
So tell us about your experience at Iowa State. How was that?
It was like, I'm so grateful I went to Iowa State. I actually, grew up, I was going to go to FITM. I was going to go to Parsons, go to New York or LA. That was always the path I thought I would take. But I heard Iowa State was 8th in the nation, like at the time for fashion. I was like, whoa, I didn't know that. And so I went to a fashion show my junior year and just decided I'm going to apply there and go. And I didn't look anywhere else. And the thing that really makes Iowa State fashion program is the Trend Magazine, the Iowa State Fashion Show. I know students that went to other universities where they weren't able to participate in that stuff until they were a senior in college. So it's Iowa State, there's a smaller pool of people. You have the opportunity to gain that experience so much sooner than if you were at a big, well-known fashion school. But yeah, so in college, I was in apparel design and journalism. And one of the main final projects is your senior collection, your senior year. And I had thought about it my whole 4 years of college. What am I going to do for my senior collection? And, I got to it and actually, to back up a little bit, I took an internship in New York City at Bonobos. It was a menswear line. And when I was there, I went to a church service that talked about the bonsai tree. It was this pastor had flown in from Ireland to give this service. And there was a lot of things that just I was thinking about my senior collection, and I was making these connections with some of the things he was saying and things I wanted to represent in my collection. And he started talking about the bonsai tree. And I didn't know this, but you can picture a bonsai tree. It's always in a pot, super small, beautiful tree. But if you actually take the same seed from that pot and put it in the wilderness, it's a massive tree. So just thinking about your environment is so important. That foundation you build is so important. And if you build strong roots, you won't be shaken by any wind or storm that comes your way. And so that was, I wanted to kind of tell that story of the connection between humans and nature and all of the messages that nature really does send to us. And I wanted to make something that was very interconnected, that resembled that root structure and different things. So I started learning macrame by myself. I'd never done macrame before. If you remember the macrame, plant hangers and that kind of thing, but I wanted to make it more ready to wear, streetwear and all that stuff. So I started learning it and doing it in every piece of my item for the collection. And I ended up doing 11 full outfits for that collection. And then I went on to win the Iowa State Fashion Show and Omaha Fashion Week with that.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Dang, so amazing. You just said a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
First of all, I love that what inspired that collection, the bonsai tree, and how if you plant it in a pot, it'll only grow so big.
Yeah.
But if you plant it out in the wilderness, it'll grow huge. There's also I feel I've heard a similar saying. It's if you have a baby shark and you put it in a fish tank, it's only going to grow as big as its fish tank. Right. But if you put it in the ocean, it's going to grow, massive. So it's kind of crazy. I feel for creatives, it's the same way, honestly.
100%.
I mean, you're from a different town originally, and so are you, Marquis.
Yeah.
But coming to Des Moines, a bigger city from where y'all grew up, and then honestly, you too, Rylie.
Yeah.
Growing up in Cedar Rapids and coming to a bigger city, do you feel y'all have grown more?
100%.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, we're all products of our spheres of influence.
Yeah.
So the bigger the pool, or the deeper the connection, like the more that you're just going to get out of it too. Cause like, I mean, how I even got to Des Moines was like through connections, you know, through connection we built like one time, but like it just kind of snowballed after that and other connections too. So it's like based on your sphere of influence, you never know, like if it's small, then you're only going to go so far. But if it's bigger, then, you know, that's the power of your influence and networking.
And then also you said you heard that kind of about the bonsai tree thing from, you said, a church service?
Yeah.
So do you feel like faith has a part in kind of like what inspires you and like how you create things?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I've always had this like subtle influence throughout like all of my designs and collections that maybe I didn't even realize was inspiring it, but I do feel like the most creative when I'm connected spiritually. And I think like being connected to like just like who creates everything, my creativity doesn't end. And so I think like there's a direct source of like when I'm the most connected and aligned with the things that I'm pursuing is when I'm most connected spiritually. So like, yeah, Rooted started off like with that baseline of just like having that foundation of something like and growing your roots strong wherever you are. And like another parallel to that is like, oh, you're creative from Iowa. Like when you're in the big pools of New York and LA, everyone's like, oh, what is a fashion designer doing in Iowa? But there's something being said about being like proud of where you're from and just what that has taught you and made you into, because I've grown up in Iowa my whole life. Like I would love to travel and explore other places, but I know that my home like has always and will be Iowa, and it's gotten me to where I am. So like that's another like I think thing that people can really connect to with Rooted is just being proud of where you're from, wherever that may be.
That's dope. So following college, was it easy for you to find a job? And tell us about like your first experience, like working in your field.
Yeah. So, I graduated in 2020. So I pretty much like was thrown out in the pandemic. But I had a different experience. Like as the world was slowing down, my life was still like very much accelerated, which was nice in a way and not nice in other ways because I wanted to just slow down and like take a breather and process everything that was happening. But post-grad, I did like an accelerated program with Iowa State. So I'm with Rooted. So that was like another thing that like helped me invest into what I was building. But I also did an international competition called Arts of Fashion Foundation. And I did an independent study with one of my professors my senior year, and she really encouraged me to like go for this competition. I was like, one, there's no way that I'm getting into this thing. It's like worldwide. I mean, all the best schools, not just in the U.S., but worldwide, in Hong Kong and Beijing and Barcelona, like are applying to this. So some of the best students. And you had to submit 3 fashion illustrations, and then if you get accepted, you have to make 2 of them and then ship them. Well, usually they would have a show, but in this case, you had to ship the garments to wherever the location was. And this was like one of the most surreal moments. Like I've had bits and pieces of like moments that validated what I thought my purpose was in design and that kind of thing. But this was like those I had worked for and like had my eyes set on those goals. This one was just out of the blue. Like I wasn't expecting anything out of this, and to get so much out of it was awesome. But I was one of 4 from the U.S. that got accepted. So the other 2 were New York and Rhode Island, California, and then the rest were in all those big cities across the world. So there's 50 total. And then the garments, I had to ship them to Paris, and they walked in the Louvre in Paris. So like I don't even believe that when I say that, because I didn't see it with my own eyes, only in video. But yeah, I guess I can say that something I made walked in the Louvre with like all of these incredible designers, and it literally was like Hong Kong, Ames, Iowa. Like no one knows
Yeah,
That's so fun.
where
That's
that
insane.
is.
Did that change your confidence level a little
yeah.
bit when you realized like, wow, I was top 4, well, in the top
Yeah.
50 to be able to have my garments in this fashion show. Did that change once you saw that?
Yeah. It completely changed because like before I was competing in a pool of Iowa designers and like good healthy competition, but like to be just thrown out internationally and actually like make the list. My professor even still reminds me how big of a deal it was because like I didn't get to experience like the event and the show and like really see the impact of it, but she reminds me all the time like that was actually like a really big thing and it was good for Iowa and Iowa State.
How many students from Iowa State can say that they've done that? Do you know?
My professor that did it back in the day, and then she had one grad student do it a few years ago. So I'm the only undergrad.
Wow.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So can we like go like watch the video somewhere?
Oh yeah.
Or are there photos that you have that?
Yeah.
'Cause I got to see that afterwards.
Oh,
That's
for
kind
sure.
of crazy.
Yeah, I'll show you. It's on my Insta too.
So then, what are some takeaways from that experience and just like some college? Like, what are some big takeaways that you stuck with that kind of impact your life right now?
Ooh, deep. I would say the biggest thing I like think back on is how much I've done. Like, be proud of yourself, but like, how much more I could have done if I didn't doubt myself the entire way through. So like, I always think about that. Like when I'm designing, I'm usually like questioning every move I make and spending so much time just like, is this going to turn out? Is this a waste of time? Should like this and that, and spending a lot of time doubting if I can even do it or if I can make it what it is in my head come out in real life. And there's this one quote that sticks with me. I listen to this song all the time when I'm designing. It's by Toby Lou. And in it says, like, whatever I do, I believe in it. And so one of the things that I do now when I'm creating is I actually take myself out of, because you get so in your project sometimes, I now take myself out of it a little bit and make it not so personal. Like, this thing that I'm creating, like, deserves to be believed in. Like, it doesn't have to be anything that I'm doing it, but this thing that I've seen in my head deserves to, like, see if it can come to fruition. And so that's kind of like, I've had enough time now looking back on all the projects I've done and I'm proud of myself, but I'm like, I knew I could have done like this much more if I had the time back that I spent like doubting everything I was doing.
I think that's super important because I mean, we can all contest to like when we create, we get so personal in it that we're like, dude, I don't want to put this out because either I don't feel like it's good enough or it's not at its peak or I don't have time to finish it. But sometimes you just got to disconnect and still put it out to the world and see what the world thinks of it. So
True.
Think of it as its
100%.
own thing versus like being so personal. Like it's an extension of yourself. No, it's like it's its own thing, like for people's interpretation.
And if you don't put it out, you know, then you're not going to know how to get better. You know, it's just going to sit inside. And
I mean, I think most creatives, and we've talked about this before, like deal with like that imposter syndrome. And like one thing I think, I don't remember if I read this in a book or just read like this quote, but it's like some people just don't think that their product is good because they're the ones who did it. And it's like you have such that high expectation of your work where it's like, is this good because it's good and other people will appreciate it? Or is it good because like, it's just good enough, might as well put it out. So it's like you have that expectation of your work and what it can be. And that's like a hard, fine line to find. It's like, is this ready?
Right. Yeah. One of the things like I've learned from that is like the confidence you build with it comes from repetition. So like if you keep doing it, you'll have that confidence within yourself. Like, oh, I've done this before. I can do this now. Or like I've done something like this. So instead of like taking a step back and like, oh, I'm not going to do this because I know it's not going to be perfect. Like you'll slowly get over that. So.
That's good.
Okay. So you graduate college. Did you jump into any jobs working for any businesses in like the fashion and apparel design industry, or did you go straight into like full-time self-employed? Like what did you end up doing after that?
So I took kind of like a interesting route. I had joined a startup right out of college. So it was a startup in apparel manufacturing and matchmaking. Definitely so many lessons learned in like a fresh startup and really jumping in. It was like a fast track on business, working with so many different brands. And yeah, I mean, like we did things like Techstars, which is one of like the nation's biggest most prestigious accelerator program for startups. I did things like Launch House and like some different community experiences. And I think like the biggest thing that I took from that is just like network and building and like making friends along the way. And like being in fashion is so fun with that because like my favorite thing to wear to a networking event or any event is a hat. It's the best way to like open a conversation with someone because they'll come up to you and be like, I like that hat, or where'd you get that hat? And then you get to say like, oh, I made it, or like it's from this brand and like this and that.
It's basically a business card, but for fashion.
On your head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's dope.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And so it's just like the people you pick up along the way, like at trade shows even. And it's like I still talk to all these people like all the time. So I jumped into startup. And then I left that and I just took a summer like last year and I didn't want anything that required like me to think before or after I was there. Mm-hmm. So I took a break and did like a freelance jobs and like this and that. And then I jumped into another job with a really great company, but I actually just put in my like 2 weeks. So this is going to be my last week before I go full time into my design and into my sourcing company. So
that's huge.
Yeah,
congrats. That's
Congrats.
awesome.
Do you feel like in the time that you took a break, do you feel like you're experiencing like burnout at all? Like coming out of that first experience that kind of made you want to like step back?
Yeah, I mean, like I was still for somewhat burnout from like the COVID days and doing the arts of fashion and doing the accelerator on top of like working for the startup. Like I was doing so much at once that I did have probably like an extended burnout because I never got to really pause. But what I then started to be, it's like, it wasn't burnout anymore. It was more resistance. It's like the things that you're most scared of doing are the things that are most important to you. And so like actually like getting back into designing was like, there was a lot of resistance I had to overcome there. And like, I've been doing slowly like different things that scare me to just like keep pushing forward because I'm not where I was even then. Like there's no reason to be scared of like those things anymore. Mm-hmm. And that was a long time ago. So it's like, it's fresh and
yeah.
So
you're ready to go, like no more fear. Like you're just confident, like you know that this is what you want to do and you're going for it.
Yeah. I mean, like I think I've had enough like outside validation that now people are like, why aren't you like doing this? I'm like, well, I am, but you just don't know it yet. But one of the like most recent things in the last couple of months was I saw an ad like just on Instagram for like a fashion grant program, like design competition with Jack Daniel's whiskey. And I was like, I woke up, first thing I saw out of bed, and I jumped up and I was like, I think this is for me. Like I really felt aligned with it. And it's something I never would expect even Jack Daniel's to do, but I was like, I knew some of the judges that were doing this event or this grant program, and so I applied and made it to semifinalist with like a fashion illustration, and then they give you feedback, and then I was a finalist, and then I had to make it for an event that they were going to fly us out to in LA. So I like just recently did that, and I was one of 3 designers, I think over like 90 nationwide that was accepted. And I ended up like just kind of getting thrown into this and not knowing what to expect. And when we were out in LA, like the event I was at, it's just crazy, like all the manifestations I had years ago, like seeing them come to life, because there's a lot of just designers and people in the like event audience attending that I follow. Like I followed their brands for years. I've seen them on like design shows on like Netflix and HBO, and to be in like the same room as them and to be able to talk to them was just crazy. And so I think like now there's like nothing stopping me from like going forward. I saw like people doing like their dreams and doing it full time. I'm like, that's where I want to be a year or two from now.
Who were some of those people that you followed or you've seen like via social media or like TV shows that are like kind of like big brands or like big names? Who are some of those people?
I mean, I follow so many, so many that I can't even name, but like some of the like big ones that I really like, I look at their quality and like their intricacies in fabric and different stuff is like Kith and Aimé Leon Dore and Rude. And what else?
Damn,
and then a lot of like
elite.
Those are like the elite.
Right there.
And then you have like the more niche and like some of the ones like great designers that were at this event was like Justin Mensinger. He makes like all of this repurposed apparel, and then Rue by RuPaul. She makes all of this like Indian inspired fashion, and like all of these independent designers too that I've like always followed and then got a chance to talk to. It was like crazy.
That's cool.
That's cool.
What are some current projects that you're working on now, being a full-time like self-employed entrepreneur?
Yeah, so I mean, one of the things that I'm doing just kind of like in conjunction with Rooted is my business called Source Thread. So working with like local people like Be Well and Borg and Austin Neal, like some of the people that have already been on this podcast, we've collaborated together for like a while, and I've like helped them with their sourcing for like their events and different things, and really seeing like what's possible to do, because in the past, like working in manufacturing, it was like always designers run into so many restrictions with getting their product made that it ends up not even being like what they envisioned it would be, like the quality, the details, like embroidery versus screen print versus puff, like all that stuff. And so I've really been able to like build resources while building my own brand that really will like help others like not dim down their vision for their apparel. So I've been running Source Thread now for a while, like in between my 9 and 5, like on lunch breaks and like afterwards, that now I'm going like full time in that while being able to build my brand, because I'm using the same resources at the same time and like collecting more knowledge under like what is possible to be made. So I'm super excited about that.
Yeah, go more into depth on, you said Source Threads, right?
Yes.
So you basically are taking on clients. They're saying, I want this thing created, like here's the designs. And then you're basically, are you hooking them up with manufacturers or companies that basically do that, and then like they embroider it and like, or puff print or just ink print and do all that stuff? So that's essentially what you're doing.
So basically I can do it two ways. Like some people have something in their mind, but they can't quite design it. Like I'll do the mock-ups and I'll do that kind of thing for them. But those that like do, they just go right into like working with a factory and getting samples done. And then we'll do like a couple rounds or so if we need. Honestly, it usually gets done like on the first or second try. And then it gets shipped in, which I have like a variety of different resources. So it kind of just depends, like, okay, what kind of margin are you trying to get? Like, what kind of like thing are you looking for? Because there's different factories for different things. Like they'll specialize in sleepwear or bags or accessories or Letterman jackets. So it really just depends. And then, yeah, we kind of work that way. And yeah.
Cool. Man, this is just this is fascinating stuff for me, because as y'all know, I'm trying to get into this like fashion world a little bit.
Oh, for sure.
But like, oh man, what was my question?
Well, I was even like today I saw on the shirt that we did when I was at my past startup job, just walking around, which Noah designed and I helped produce.
Which one,
like,
the hand?
The hand with the star, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just so like crazy to like see your stuff in the wild. Like
yeah,
you've touched
really
that,
is.
like you know the process behind that,
Yeah.
and like now it just like lives free.
Yeah.
Speaking of seeing a past project, what are some of your favorite projects that you've had an opportunity to touch in a sense?
Oh yeah. I mean, like the biggest one that we've really been working on is like these hats, for instance, like made for B. Wells' Elegance album. And we've done like the craziest Letterman jackets, like very intricate embroidery.
Those are really fire. Yeah.
And some of those, and there's a lot more like lined up, like just throughout the community that people are reaching out and like now knowing like what they're able to do and like bring to life without like restriction or without like just literally breaking even on it. There's a lot of exciting projects that are coming out from people.
So with like B. Wells collection, do y'all sell them online on a website, or are they kind of like a one-off thing? Because didn't he do like a album release party kind of thing?
Yeah, so I've been seeing like people do it a few ways. Like either they have an event coming up and they want to like sell them right then and there. Other people have been doing like pre-orders. So like once you get that like perfected sample in, then they're like doing the photo shoots and like selling them. So then you know exactly what you're ordering. There's no overstock, which is a great way to do it. And then others are like, okay, you know, we just want like stock in for e-commerce and building that e-commerce site. So I've really seen it like that 3 ways.
Okay, I remembered my question from earlier. So you went to school for like apparel design, but like now you're being like a self-employed entrepreneur, like you have to kind of learn the business side of things.
Oh, for sure.
Has that been challenging for you to like dive into the world of business and just like building yourself up in that area?
Yeah. I mean, like, luckily, I feel like all of my experience has, like, really added up well. Like, jumping into, like, a new startup, I got, like, the fast track in business and, like, just all of the sometimes, like, mundane tasks that you have to do just to, like, operate your business. I'm still definitely learning as I go, but for the most part, like, that helped just get started, like, working on trademarks and, like, building like an LLC versus an S corp, like all that fun stuff. So yeah, I feel like business is something that's always like interested me too. I've always kind of been business minded, like going back to even like the early things that I was doing when I was young, like between building my business cards, I was also like drawing up website designs and like building toys and like just a bunch of different wacky like stuff that like 7 and 8 year olds like I don't know don't normally see doing. So I've always been interested in it, and like my dad runs a business, and so like I have that influence in my life too. So it's definitely like more exhilarating for me than like working and kind of like corporate job, because it's just you're paving your own path and learning something new like every single day. So I definitely like see like both, like I'm very fashion design minded and mechanical on how that works, but I'm also like now like so excited to dive into marketing and different aspects that like complete that like full circle of what you need to create a business.
Okay, so then you're doing stuff for Be Well. Are you doing any other projects for other clients right now?
Oh yeah. I mean, a bunch.
Who are some other like people that you're working with? Like, are you working with any other artists or creatives? I know you mentioned Borg.
Yeah, we're working on something. I've been working with Dylan from Radical Love on some stuff.
Fire. Shout out Dylan.
Yeah.
Dylan.
Some like local organizations or coffee shops. Like, it's fun because there's definitely different niches. That I think one's growing naturally for me, like the Des Moines creatives and like fulfilling like whatever they have envisioned. But there's also like so much opportunity to go into niches. Like pickleball is huge this summer and like every demographics in it. So it's like sports and volleyball. Like, I mean, it can really go any which way. So I'm kind of taking one kind of group at a time and seeing what I can create for apparel in those spaces. And even have stuff where it's like, okay, this is pre-built out for you. Just like go crazy, add your prints, your graphics, your logos, like whatever you want to do to it, add a sleeve, like take this base and like just completely build off of it. So you don't need that like design background to really have exactly what you want.
Yeah. Are you working on any of your own like future collections for yourself? Like, because at Iowa State you were making collections and entering them into fashion shows, and are you still doing that kind of as your own creative outlet?
Yeah, so I have like some big plans to kind of relaunch Rooted by fall. I want to throw like a big event and just invite as many people as I can fit in the venue and just put on like my own show. So kind of like just corralling all the people throughout like, you know, high school, my college mentors, like my post-grad like community, and bringing everyone together. That's like, I've had like outrageous support for like not even doing anything for the last like 2-3 years in the public eye, and still like people just like wholeheartedly supporting me. I want to bring everyone together and just like have a fun event, show off some new clothes, take some cool content, and then like build an e-commerce site, post that. So I haven't like gotten really deep into all the planning yet, but I have some like crazy ideas that I want to see if they'll work.
Yeah, I'm excited to see that. You'll have to invite me to that.
Oh yeah, you guys are invited for sure.
I appreciate that. You mentioned having a college. You just mentioned a college mentor.
Yeah.
So how important is it, like in your industry, to have a mentor to like kind of coach you through the steps?
Huge. I feel like it's important to have a mentor like that's in different stages of life. So I definitely had like my good friend. We grew up in Cedar Rapids together, but she was a few years older than me at Iowa State. Her name is Leah Doctorman, and she basically taught me fashion illustration. Like I was learning in class, but she was like, come over. Like we were up late working like 12 p.m. to 2 a.m. like on their projects. They're like, come, like we'll give you pointers, because like my fashion illustrations, I knew they looked terrible. And then in one night, just like watching her, how she did it, my illustrations were night and day. And she mentored me like throughout college. She's helped me get my internship at Bonobos in New York City. And like, so she was like my, like just a few steps ahead of me, like mentor. And then also when I was in New York City, I had a mentor. I was trying to get an internship at Fila, and they were doing some changes in office and stuff and didn't take any interns that summer. But one of the directors, the creative director, and I really connected, and he took me on like 2 different New York tours of the fashion and garment districts, and like mentored me throughout when I was starting my Rooted collection. Took me to like thread shops to like find stuff to macrame into my clothes, and that was crazy. That was like a crazy New York moment for me. I was like, this is insane.
That's super cool.
Yeah. And then in college, I had like another mentor that when we did our final like senior line pitches, he was an industry like judge that came in, and he ended up mentoring me like a year or 2 even past that. So, and then of course, like my professor that I did an independent study with and got into arts of fashion. So it's just, there's been like a different person along the way. And so now like knowing how influential that was to me, like I try to do that for like the younger students. And
Absolutely.
I was just back at Iowa State like 2 weeks ago as an industry judge, and like it was crazy. Like there was girls that would like come up to me like, I seen you do editor-in-chief of Trend while doing senior line, like made me switch from merchandising to design. Like
that's super cool.
And that's like a surreal moment, because I get inspired by seeing other people, what they're doing and the steps they're taking. So to be like upfront and vocal about like, this is the steps I took, like, and seeing that influence people is like crazy.
Is there any current students at Iowa State that you see the potential in them and you're like, they're on the come up?
I think like I only got to see like one class project, but I've made my way back to like some of the Iowa State fashion shows and different stuff. But even I think like there's so many people in Des Moines doing great things. Like I definitely see, like I would love to see Des Moines as like a destination for creatives at some point. Like having enough here that like people from all over flying in for this, or like they're seeing Des Moines do this, and like I think we're definitely on the way of like having like instead of creatives being competitive of like, oh, there's all these photographers or there's all these designers, but seeing everyone work together to like build a like authentic community is like so cool.
Competition doesn't equate to like doesn't even come close to like the power in collaboration. Like
100%.
there's just I don't know. I've only been here a year and I've seen a ton of changes come through the last 12 months, just like in the creative industry. So it's been super cool to see.
And that's one of the reasons why we do Creatives POV is try to
Made
get
this platform.
get creatives to know the creatives and collab. So.
And people take action too. Noah was talking about this like when I first met you.
Yeah.
Like wanting to do this.
Wow.
That was one of the first
That's actually
things.
true.
Yeah.
We were at Starbucks talking about
Oh,
it, right?
yeah.
Yeah. Damn. That's crazy.
So I'm like, that's awesome that like when you hear someone talk about an idea, it's not just like a fleeting thing. It's like people take action in what they want to do because like there's enough people around you to support it as well. And like if you're not the expert in something, then like there's enough people around that like you can work with to make that happen.
Yeah. So talk about networking because like, I mean, we're talking about Des Moines. We're talking about some people that you've worked with. And ironically, like a lot of those people you are working with have been on the podcast, like Dylan, Austin, and Borg. So like how important has networking in Des Moines been for you?
I think like I was just so surprised by it, like to be honest. I mean like right when I moved here, it wasn't long before one, I got connected with Be Well, and then he connected me with so many people. And then those connections, like everyone, like even if I haven't like met you guys, I've met like so many people that like know you guys. And like it's cool that it's like a small enough community that you can like pinpoint who's doing stuff. And it's not just like so overcrowded. Like it's a close community like at the end of the day. Yeah. And I think like just the people that are very open to like sharing their connections or willingness to like, oh, I need headshots done. Like I won't like this one's on me and then like let's collaborate on the next thing. Like that kind of just like people are willing to like help out and just like I don't know. It's like a helping hand, but like also like make money off of your art as well. Like that's super important at the same time. But everyone's helping each other get a leg up a little bit.
Yeah.
Who are some people from Des Moines that are inspiring you right now, creatively?
I mean, gosh, I think everyone that I work with for Source Thread, even like when they come to me, I want to make this t-shirt. I want to deck it out with this and that. And then being able to like make that happen. I think just being a part of people's like projects and what they're working on and what they want to come out of like doing that, like whether it's raising money for an organization through these t-shirts or being able to like be a walking advertisement for like your passion. I mean, there's probably like, and I'm just getting started with Source Thread too. So it's like, there's a handful of people now that I'm working with and it's like, I can't wait to see your design, your vision, like come to life.
Who is a designer or company, they can be anybody that you really inspire to work with and why?
This is a good question.
To work with.
Or collab with, same thing, kind of, but yeah.
Oh my gosh. I mean, like, one, it will be interesting. I do have a vision for Rooted, but to actually see where it ends up, and I'm sure it'll take a few pivots before I actually see the just brand vision and what it's meant to be and not exactly even what I think it should be. And then seeing who that aligns with for like any collaboration. But I think like people doing different things. So like whether it's like, okay, your focus is in shoes or accessories, and that's not my specialty, to like be able to cross collab and like talents. But like one person or like one brand, I mean, I'm always thinking big too.
Yeah.
I would say, oh God, maybe like Rude. I always say that wrong, but RHUDE. Like something like, or even one of the really great designers that came out of Iowa State, that came out of Des Moines, is Todd Snyder, and he's like now like kind of like luxury. And I know a lot of my friends from Iowa State now work there or work in their collaborations department. So like they're like a luxury like staple brand. And so, but I've seen them collab with like
menswear
and different
suits and stuff.
like
that?
more like every day, but like nice quality stuff. But I've seen them like mix in independent artists as well.
That's
so
cool.
like something like that, something a little bit unexpected.
What are some like brands and designers that are not from Des Moines that have inspired like your personal style and your like approach to design? If that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because all of my influences aren't even always designers. So I mean, like I'll like take inspiration from like knitters on Instagram or like other macrame artists and like the knots they're learning, or like there's a designer from Wisconsin that's made it as a CFDA award designer, and she works a lot with welding, so like metalwork and different stuff. So seeing people like there's like there's a lot of arenas in fashion, but I like that mix of people that are more like artisanal and like doing things like out of the box that you wouldn't see, but also like the wearable everyday streetwear graphic tees and ripped up jeans and paint splatters and that kind of thing. So like my influences come a lot from art, comes from spirituality, it comes from like just messages that I've heard and how that like ends up manifesting onto clothes. But yeah, all over like the art scene and like sneakers and that kind of thing.
Do you have a preference like when it comes to like the cut and sew, or do you like designing more digital stuff and getting it printed?
Yeah, so I mean, I started with the cut and sew, like making everything by hand, like every inch of it, every stitch. Like even I spent time, I did a study abroad in Paris where you have to make everything hand sewn. So I've definitely done like a little bit of everything, and now like also working in sourcing, I know that. I think it's important to like be diverse in like how you're doing it, because the designers that do make everything like that's like incredible, amazing, like I love watching them do it, but it's also really hard to like scale, or if you do need to step away or you want to go on vacation or you have a family thing, but you have like all of this sewing work to be done. I like doing that stuff. So I like plan to do a lot of like all of the macrame that I'm doing, like vests and bags and stuff like by myself to start, but then also having a mix of like, okay, my factory can make the t-shirts and like these jeans. So being able to do both so that I can like maximize on like what I'm trying to like convey and not compromise what I'm doing because I can't do it physically in Iowa. Because a lot of the like resources we have here, it's like Joann's and like Hobby Lobby, which they've got me through a lot, but it's limited.
Yeah, very limited. Yeah. What are some big fashion and design trends that are on the horizon and that you see becoming like, you know, big things in culture?
Yeah. I know everyone right now is talking about this like quiet luxury. So we were so encompassed in like all of these trends that are like in your face constantly and moving so fast that people are finding that they're not following trends anymore, and that they're honing into their own style, their own niche thing. It doesn't have to be like anyone else's. And then also in quiet luxury, like they want things that are going to last years, and they're going back to even the items that are thrifted that are lasting years. So those are like two like emerging, I would say, like trends that like overarching that I'm seeing. But I mean, there's so many like, one, I love to see like all the graphic designers getting into design. Like there's so much like breaking the barrier of like the normal hoodie, the normal t-shirt, and making those like luxury. And yeah, but I mean, like I've always been like a hat person. So like my favorite thing to watch is like hats. Like the different materials, like Kith, like I watch because they always do different fabric on a hat that I haven't seen before. And so yeah, those are like things that I pay attention to, and like just having like those statement pieces in an outfit that like makes it interesting or makes it a conversation. Because especially for those that are like introverts too, it's like if you have people coming up to you, approaching you, it makes meeting people, it makes networking so much easier than like if you try to approach people out of the blue. So I truly use it as like a just like a connecting piece between people. So
And we all wear hats. Probably 90. I know me and
you missed
Ethan.
the memo.
You'll never see me.
I know.
Not wear a hat.
Yeah, I'm never. Besides when I'm filming a wedding.
Yeah.
Other than that, I'm gonna have a hat on.
Yeah.
So I got a question for you. We don't normally ask guests this a lot, but outside of being a creative, like what hobbies or what do you do to disconnect from like your everyday?
I think
designer stuff?
that's something I take more seriously now. Is like really that time to not even think about it. Like not even think about what I need to do or a design idea, but like just going out for a walk. Like this, it's the simplest things. It's the small things, like just going out for a walk or, going to visit friends. A lot of my friends are even having babies. So like making sure I'm spending time with like all of the young ones that are coming up, and just even this Saturday, went to the farmer's market and trying to source like good farms for meat and milk to like not have to go to the grocery store all the time. So like just kind of diving into like what are those personal growth things that I can do that also fuel me. So then when I'm going back to like design, I'm not like tired from my weekend or tired from like my evening, but like I'm fueling myself in like small different ways, and or diving into like a different like creative outlet that I'm not used to or I'm not good at, and not trying to be good at it. Like painting, terrible. I can draw a little bit, but like I can't paint, but painting is soothing. So like that's something I'll do. Or I renovated my home like 2 years ago. And so like doing home projects is super fun for me, like painting my bathroom tile floors and like different stuff that is just different than what I do day to day.
Yeah.
That's good.
Is there any other like creative outlets that you want to learn or explore that are outside the realms of like apparel design, but can maybe like go hand in hand with it?
Yeah, I mean, like, I feel like I'm constantly trying to just grab a few skills under different things that, like, if I need to use it, I can do it quicker. So, I mean, like, photography is something that I've always wanted to take interest in, just, like, being able to take my own personal photos well. And then, like, expanding on some of my graphic like design skills, because like I can do Photoshop and Illustrator, but like I'm probably doing it the harder way. So being able to pick those things up, and then also like being in design, like the way people are designing is changing. So I've been dabbling in like the 3D design where you can actually like build the digital garment before the sample, and like see like the rotation of the garment and like make it look super realistic.
That's cool.
It's hard. It's really hard, but like kind of trying to stay current, and I can always like outsource that, but like also if I knew how to do it myself for like a project, it would be like super cool. So I try to stay up to date.
I have a question about partially kind of we already talked about it, like your approach to designing, but have you ever used AI to either design or draw inspiration for a piece or for a design? Talk about that.
Yeah, so I have, that's like another thing within like learning 3D design. There's also ways to do it like on Midjourney with AI. So actually, if you go to my SourceThread website, the 2 garments on there were made completely with AI. So I haven't like dived as deep as I want to in like actually making realistic mock-ups with AI, but that's something that I want to try to do. But baseline, I don't want to go like much farther than that. But I do think that it's a great tool for like creatives to get their ideas out fast and get them out realistic.
How do you see AI like impacting the fashion industry?
Crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting because you see a lot of these like cross collaborations that people are doing with AI. So like you can take like Nike and then like collaborate it with like a independent brand and like different stuff, and like it's still, I see like you still really need to know how to use it to get what you want out of it. So it does take like a lot of studying and like how to write it exactly. The things I'm seeing people do are like amazing. I think it will change product development, like mock-ups, and like hopefully continuously decreasing the amount of samples that you need physically to communicate to like a factory. They'll see and exactly what you want in real life, which like in the past, sometimes products will take 12, 15, 20 iterations just of one garment to get it to the actual realistic thing, because you're kind of working off of like a Word document,
Yeah. I have a homie that I'm helping with right now with his brand, and he's working with a manufacturer, and he has to pay like $500 and up for samples of just to get samples shipped from like overseas to his house. And there's been a couple times with his upcoming drops where he's had to pay for like 3 different samples. So he's out like $2,000. But he's really, it's a good thing though, because it's like the first item that he dropped, he kind of they sent him samples, and there were things we could have tweaked, but because it was his first drop, we were like, is it worth it? I don't know. Let's just do it. And so it wasn't a bad first like hoodie and shirt, but it could have been better had we taken the time and the money to perfect the little details. And so, since then, he is like taking hits,
right?
Like with paying for more samples and getting them like perfected, but like the products are turning out way better. Like he just got some samples in last week, and I tried them on, and they're crazy.
Good.
We're gonna have this kid on the podcast too. Yeah, kind of on the topic of like AI affecting the fashion industry. Do you think social media has had an influence in like trends and stuff like that in the fashion industry?
Yeah, I feel like it's almost, I mean, this is just my perspective, but deterred people from trends because they move so fast. I mean, like you can't keep up with like TikTok and like what people are wearing or what people are doing. And then if you do dive into it, then you're seeing a lot of the same stuff over and over again because they know that you like that. So you almost see people like moving away from like following some like big thing they see on social media. And like even personally with designing, it's like people always ask me like, oh, how are you going to sell it? Or like, who's your market? I'm like, my market's going to be like whoever like digs what I'm doing and like wants to join in and like wear it, because your people, if you keep like creating authentically to you, like there's enough people out there that are gonna like jive with the things that you're creating versus like trying to guess and like really like aim for, oh, I want these people to wear it. Well, those people most likely won't like it. But there will be people that do. So I think like there's a difference between like Source Thread to me is like, one, I'm passionate about like bringing other people's visions to life, but that's more of like a business that I can like sustain for a long time because I enjoy it and I like have the opportunity to make money off of that. Rooted is like something I want to be big in the future, but something I don't want to put pressure on. So if I want to be able to create freely with that being my outlet, and then the right people will attract to that. And I think it's the same thing with trends. It's like some people like are just gonna wear what they want to wear, and it's gonna be a bunch of different things. And like I think it's like just more niche of like just being true to what feels good for you and not what the other person's wearing.
For your brand, Rooted, and for I guess just like across the fashion industry, would you say is it easier to market like a high dollar, like a high demand product over a high quality product? And like I'm trying to figure out how to phrase that question because like I often see like some like you see products like on the Shein, like website that's just like garbage, but like they just get it to you or like you whatever. But then you have like Hype Beast and other stuff that like is a higher dollar amount. That's great product, but also a great like a high dollar price. Like, do you see any like trends with just like the high dollar amount being a high like marketable product?
Yeah, I think like I've learned a lot just even talking to people when I was out in LA, like how they're marketing their business or like before I even have anything on the market, like people are telling me what I should charge for this and that or like how I could do it. And I think there is like some value in having those high ticket items just because they seem more like exclusive, like right off the bat, it's like more almost like I guess like desirable to
your audience
obtain.
Is kind of flushing out themselves.
But then there's people that like can't afford that or they like it, but not enough to like invest that much into it that you have like pieces that are accessible so people can support your brand. I think it's just like a balance between all of those aspects. And like, I see people doing it a lot of different ways. And there's like a lot of psychology behind all of that in marketing and how you drop it. And if you do a limited release or if you tell people like, oh, there's only 10 of this, and there's so much there that I like still need to do digging into how
100%
what like works for my brand in the future because I don't want to like just keep trying all these different things. I want to just stay consistent. Like, okay, I have a routine of I drop these kind of items at this time and there's this many of them or that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean like the big Shein brands they're there for like that quick. I need something like this weekend to wear. People that aren't investing in like a long-term closet and know that it's going to fall apart, unfortunately. Oh, yeah.
I've kind of been experiencing this, like, around like middle school to high school, you go through like the phase of like, okay, let's just go to H&M or whatever. And let's just, because
it's
affordable.
Hating on H&M now.
Hey, I'm not. H&M is really good. Like if you have a budget and you don't have like a lot to spend, and if you need something quick, and H&M does have a lot of like the basics and essentials that you would need for your wardrobe. My complaint is like when I buy like a t-shirt from H&M, for example, I'll wear it for like a month, like really hard, and then it's just
you get 3 washes.
Yeah, and then it'll either shrink or it'll get dirty or it'll just really wear out. And it's like I mean I've been watching I watch YouTubers who do fashion and like I follow a bunch of people too, and like a lot of things that these people are preaching is like investing in your wardrobe on like those classic timeless things that'll last you longer. So like I'm kind of currently trying to like revamp my wardrobe in those things.
Right. I think that's just like a part of like maturing and growing up too though. Like I just the clothes that I would buy like in high school or college just because, that you have all these events and you need to wear different things. And it's like, that's just like when you need to do it on a budget. Because like one for like me specifically, even it's like my money was going towards the like fabrics and things I needed to make for class. So like now being in like adulthood and like wanting things that will last in your closet, like I see a lot more people investing more money into clothes, but less consumption. So yeah, I'm doing the same thing. I'm like, what do I want to wear 5 years from now? If I don't want to wear this thing 5 years from now, or I don't see like someone else, like me passing it on to a friend or like rotating closets in some way, then like I usually move away from it.
Yeah. I did go see the movie Air recently. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't, but I read up on it a little bit.
It's really good.
It was fire.
They were so in the movie. The movie's about Michael Jordan signing with Nike, and so when they get Michael Jordan and his parents to Nike to like do the pitch meeting, they were talking about like, okay, what shoe are we gonna like have on the table for him to hold? I think so. The guy that created the Jordan 1 was Peter. I can't remember his last name. I think his first name was Peter, but basically he said they were like, okay, do we have multiple colorways? Do we have just one? Like what? And then he's like, no, just one. Yeah. Because as soon as you have multiple, it kills the value and the hype behind it. Yeah. So I just thought I would throw that in there because it kind of relates to like the high dollar, like limited items that we were just talking about, kind of.
Yeah. It's like almost like don't give someone too many options.
Yeah.
Like one thing I've learned just like working in the industry and like I've told like students when I was like talking with them on their projects is like you need to have a why behind almost like every design choice. So if you have 3 colorways, like why did you do those 3 colorways? Because if you go out to market for like a bigger corporation or bigger design brand and the like yellow performs like way below like pink or blue, then that's like millions of dollars in loss for some brands. So, and even like not having the right color, people will like deter from that. Because like, oh, I like wish they had like a pink, but they only have gray and teal. I don't know. So like there's a lot of actual like psychology even behind colors and the emotions they evoke and the generational trends of like why those these groups are gravitating towards these specific colors at this time. So I think that's like a lot of something that people don't always take into account. Like they just kind of go towards colors that they feel are like you're feeling with it like at that moment, but there's a lot of like thought behind like what colors people will actually buy.
That is a good point because I'm currently talking to my homie about this. So Eli, if you're watching,
calling him out,
take notes. But yeah, no, it's like if it's not broke, don't fix it. Like you know, like you'll see like the kind of Chicago colorway is still a thing now, like it was back in the 90s, or like obviously like neutral colors. I feel like those will always have a place, but like even stuff like kind of like the royal blue, it's kind of like a more like vibrant color, but it's also like I see a lot of brands are still using it, and it's like it still looks good. You know, if it's not broke, don't fix it. You know,
and I mean like those things are gonna come around. So even if it's not popular now, like it'll come back around in the future. But like so smart for them to just pick one colorway and be like, this is what people will like because they don't have another option. Pretty much like we don't get to give them the choice. Like we're pushing them that like this is gonna be cool to wear.
Yeah. And I think timing plays a huge part in that too. Yeah. Like you said, like sometimes it might depend on the season or it might depend on the weather, which colorway you drop. So
yeah.
I have a question about your business then. What would you say your business rooted would be marketed to, like in sense of style? Like is it more like everyday wear, fashion, like high fashion, like luxury? What would you like? I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think a lot about this. But I want it to be approachable in like ways that it you can wear it every day. I'll wear it every day. Like I normally don't get all that dressed up, but I also like really interesting clothing that I haven't seen before. So I definitely have like this wearable art in it, but in a way that like I hope is approachable to people. So like kind of mimicking like traditional items, but really playing with the fabrication, playing with the quality, and like things that make that more interesting than like your everyday button-up shirt. Like,
Okay.
and just like the aspect of like me like making it like handmade, and that kind of thing. So like it's a play on like two different markets of just everyday wear, but also like I would love to put it on a runway. But like maybe it's a hoodie with a macrame vest over top, or something that you can pick a piece out of and want to wear.
Yeah. Kind of like switching gears, is it hard being a fashion designer, apparel designer, entrepreneur in your lane in Iowa?
Yeah. I think it's interesting because, when I do travel places, everyone's like, why are you in Iowa? Like, you need to be in LA. But I kind of disagree. And of course, like I would love to explore and travel and like see other creative cities, but there's something to be said about like Iowa and having the space, the time, and like the cost of living being low to be able to invest in the things that I want to create. Because I think like I can always pick up a flight and go to New York and LA for a reason, like for an event or a trade show or or even like fashion weeks. But if I were to like pick up and go to those cities, one, I'd have to downsize and like where I live and not have the extra space to create in my own home. Then I have rent plus studio space. You can tell I've thought a lot about this.
Yeah.
So I think like I'm in the right spot. Even like for just my stage of life and my stage of business, that I'm able to like operate with like low stress, but still be able to go out for those cool things. I also think like if you're in a city like that, there's so many distractions because there's an event every single night. There's a cool gathering, there's a fashion, this and that, that you might just get so caught up in like being in these events that you're not at home creating the things that are going to take you to that next step.
Okay.
So,
is there anything in Iowa that we're missing in this field?
I think that like one, it's going to be amazing to see a year or two from now, like what Des Moines looks like. Cause I think there's a lot of people here that are growing and innovating. But I want something that's like that attraction for people outside of Des Moines to like come here and join this community and make this like the place to be versus like, oh, if you're creative, then you should probably move somewhere else. And I think there's a lot of people in the city like with that mission too.
Yeah.
But whether it's like a storefront or like just a yearly fashion event, I think there's a lot that could be done for fashion, specifically even because, that is one thing that I see, like, there's a lot of different niche markets for like photography or like painting and art, but it'd be cool to see all the fashion designers come together. Yeah. And that's something I've been thinking about.
I feel like we don't really have like the manufacturers based in Des Moines. I feel like everyone here has to outsource to like another state or like country to get their product made. Like I feel like that's something that Des Moines could use is like having that rooted somewhere in the city. I think that would help out a lot.
I mean, culturally, cost of labor is just night and day difference from the Midwest to a third world country or just LA where you have production on production on production. You just have a bigger pool to choose from.
Lots of logistics there, but I think like just having even Iowa have more resources than just like ordering blanks because that just digs into your margin, or print to order digs into your margin. And then you're not really growing a business as much because you haven't been able to make profit. So just being able to like bring together whatever we have to like make these businesses profitable and creative and like not dim their vision. I mean, it's going to grow the creative community even more because we can invest in like these events and like making these attractions too.
Sure. Have you ever thought about like only pursuing design and apparel as like an outlet, and like actually, have you ever been tempted to like, this just isn't my career, and rather like a passion?
I think like I've definitely gone down my own like rabbit holes all the time. I'm someone that wants to do everything and then in return like gets nothing done.
Yeah.
But the one thing that has stayed so consistent is design with me. Like I think about it nearly every single day unless I'm really trying to unplug. So I think if I would have listened to that a little bit earlier, like when I was younger, and I'm sure all you guys can attest to as well, is like the little like hints that you're given or like pulled to like when you're young that naturally fuels you, you can sustain that a lot longer than if like, oh, I see this person doing this and that's really cool, but it doesn't align with like, it actually drains me a bit like going into that, even though like I think it's cool, it doesn't come naturally to me. You can't sustain that for like a super long time. So if you just like listen to yourself a little bit more, like a little bit sooner, I would have gone down less rabbit holes. Still, I think it's like good to build skills that support that and learn those things, but like not just jumping with like what everyone else is doing, or especially like there's like, I read something recently about like seeing what everyone else is doing on Instagram. You can believe that you want to do that like so true to yourself, but then, or like go on this trip or make this thing or learn to do acrobats. I don't know. And then when you actually do it, you hate it. But before that, you were like, I like feel so aligned with this. I need to do this. Like, but it doesn't, it drained you when you did it versus like, if you would have just followed the things that like naturally you gravitated towards since the beginning. Like,
That's good.
Wow, that is good.
If you could give any advice to a young designer out there, or like a younger you, what advice would you give them?
yeah. I think like just to even like go back to spend less time doubting, like more time or like pulling yourself out of a project and believing in it as its own thing. Following like what naturally you gravitate towards. And then also just, I think it like, yeah, choosing wisely of what skills you build. Build like just a skill set that like excites you and follow the things that you're passionate about. Yeah.
What is your dream scenario with your businesses? I mean, we kind of talked about like a dream collab, but like what is your overall goal in the next like 2 years, 5 years, 10 years with it?
Well, like I'm so grateful to say that like I want to be doing exactly what I'm starting to do right now. I've wanted to do it for a long time, and like I just have not been happier than I have like the last few weeks, like building the things that I'm building. But once I get in like flow with all that stuff, I want to be storytelling through the things that I'm doing. So like I have, I don't know, 10, 12 plus like collections that I've dreamt up over the last few years. But like giving each one of those with rooted like justice for the message that I want to tell with those. So really like taking the time to like care about the details and like make it what I think it could be, to either impact someone to follow their passion or dive into their creative side, or even just like their mentality and perspective on life, and just it's just like basically a message that each collection will be. So
That's cool.
That's dope.
Awesome. Well, we wrap every episode with what has inspired us, like recently, whether it's like this week, this month. So who wants to start this off?
cool.
Usually our guests will go last, so you have time to
Got
think a little bit.
it. Yeah,
Think.
will be helpful.
All right, Ethan, you're going first.
I have like 4 things, like honestly, from this last week. This last week was jam packed, but I'll narrow it down to one. And by the time this episode airs, the cutoff for submissions will be done. But I was talking with Alex and TJ on, I don't know, Friday or Saturday. Well, I was talking with Alex earlier in the week, and then I was talking with them both later in the week about their creator challenge that they are doing with NV. And just talking about like some of the submissions, like kind of got my gears going. We talked about it, and it's like, it's really cool that Des Moines has a passionate creative community, not just like, I don't know, not just like, oh, I'm like creating this for Instagram to get likes, you know, like, which is kind of ironic because that's exactly what this creative challenge is. It's just for Instagram, but like it's passionate because it's like centric around something or someone or like a business or an idea. And that kind of what had me in like a creative mindset for like putting something together for their creator challenge. Unfortunately, the idea I initially had, 2 of the ideas I initially had fell through. I wasn't able to execute them, so I went with idea number 3. And I just had fun doing it. So by the time this episode airs, maybe it'll get chosen, maybe not. Made a short film for it. So it was a lot of fun. I just did it for myself for that, but I was like, I don't have to do this, but I was like, something to get out there and like start doing stuff for myself again. And I've been trying to get in a habit of doing that, especially since that's something I've been kind of like preaching to like some friends and also to myself, is like, if you don't practice what you plan on performing, you're just not going to be ready for that moment. Like whether it's writing, whether it's creating content, shooting photos, whatever it is, it's like, if you don't do it for yourself, whenever that time comes, it's probably going to be like, you might just flatline it. It might not be bad. You might not tank, but you might just be like, you didn't really do much with it. So if you're always on the way up, you know, hopefully eventually you just keep on going up. So,
And even if it doesn't get like chosen or shared or whatever, you got to share it on your page.
yeah, I
'Cause
probably
I
will.
saw it and I love it.
Yeah.
I don't
I had a lot
see
of fun
why-
shooting it.
I don't see why it wouldn't get picked. It's fire.
There's some pretty good submissions. So, I mean, they're only picking 4. So there very well could be 4 things that are better than mine, but who knows?
Either way, it's a win.
Yeah, I had fun
Doing
creating
it. Is
it.
a win, yeah.
Yeah, I had fun creating it. I mean, I created it in the shop with them, so I had fun just chatting it up with those guys. So yeah, it's cool.
And just because yours didn't get picked doesn't mean yours wasn't better than others. So
You never know.
Always remember that.
You never know.
It's kind of like this come and go thing I did. Like, I'm happy I
Yeah.
didn't win because I did not like my design. I really didn't. But you know,
Looking back, like whenever we talked about it, you had a great concept for the design. You had a poor phrase.
yeah.
I agree.
You had poor phrase to
agree.
execute
I
with.
just bring it back up because it is a win for me because it's like, oh, I got to do something for come and go.
Yeah.
Shout out, come and go.
Yeah. So. Marquis, you got something?
No, you go next.
You want me to go?
We're going to order.
All right.
We're going to skip her. Then go.
Okay. I got a couple things. So I was talking about the movie Air earlier. I've seen that movie twice now, and I also was talking to Alex and TJ about it because I was like, "Did y'all watch it? I really hope so." And they're like, "Yes, we've seen it." TJ saw it twice as well, and it makes sense that they watched that movie because like I see the same drive in like the Northern Vessel, like family as I do in kind of like the Nike team. Like they are like trying to take coffee to like new levels. And I don't want to talk too deep into it, but you know, they got cool stuff coming up.
Yeah.
And so like,
It's true.
Basically my big takeaway from the movie Air was Michael, at the time, back in like the 80s, Converse and Adidas were at the top of like the basketball sneaker market. Adidas was like the hottest. Well, Converse had like the NBA on lock. Like Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Julius Erving were all wearing Converse.
Chuck Taylors or whatever.
Yeah. And Adidas was becoming the hot commodity because Run DMC was like
hip hop community
doing the music videos with them and making the songs about Adidas, right? And so Michael Jordan, back when he was at North Carolina, he used to wear Adidas. Like he wore Converse in the games, but as soon as the game was over, would hop in an Adidas tracksuit. And basically Nike had like, I can't remember how they were like at the lowest of like it
was like 18% or something like that.
Yeah, of like the sneaker market for like basketball.
Yeah.
And they just weren't known for basketball, but they really wanted to get Michael Jordan, and they could have invested in many different players from like that year's draft, but they went all in on this one player. And because they believed that much in that one player. And so when Michael Jordan went to Adidas to have the meeting with like their like board, and then when he went to Converse to have the meeting with the Converse board, it was like kind of the same thing. Like Converse was like, "Hey, Michael, it would be an honor for you to get your name said in the same sentence as Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Julius Erving, like legends. Like your name would be in that same sentence." And like at Adidas, they're like, "We have all these shoes, like look at all these colorways, all this stuff." Like, but the thing is like Michael Jordan didn't want to just be like mentioned in the same sentence as all these other people, because at the time they were bigger than he was. He wanted to be bigger than them. And so Nike being all in on him, they're like, "We believe in you and we know that you're going to be great and that you're going to surpass those people." And so that's ultimately why Michael Jordan chose Nike over Converse and Adidas. And it was like the best investment they could have made, because like, look at all the shoes that they've sold since
multi-billion-dollar company.
Yeah, it's crazy. And so that is just amazing to me. Like, I highly recommend watching that movie. It's really inspiring to me. And the second thing was I started reading this book that Sydney Strachey told us about when she came on the podcast. It's that Rick Rubin book called The Creative Act. And I'm only like a couple chapters into it, but the first chapter or like section of the book was like titled "Everyone is an Artist" or something like that. And I believe that too, but like I was reading it from someone else's like perspective, and it's like we are all artists. Like some people practice it more than others, but in reality, everyone's trying to curate their own perfect life to how they think their life should be lived. And that in itself is an art, because like everyone's curating their own like life, you know, like you going on a walk today.
Yeah.
Like that in itself is kind of an act of art, I guess, in like the sense of this book, because it's like, that is, man, I don't know. I don't even know where I'm going with this, but it's a fire book so far. It's got a lot of interesting thoughts. So yeah, that's what inspired me.
Cool. Mine is actually Air too. The one thing that stuck out to me is that technically Nike didn't believe in Jordan. One person did. So like as creatives and as entrepreneurs here, it really only take one person to believe in you. And that can be a parent, that can be a good friend, that can be a spouse. So that's what really inspired me, is like he became technically a billionaire off one person believing in him in that industry, even though his mom, he didn't want to take the Nike the Nike meeting at all, but that one person drove all the way down to North Carolina to visit his mom in the home and talk to him. And I think that's what inspired me this week after watching Air.
Yeah.
Was it really only take one person to believe in you, in your dream. So
also Robert Strasser, who is like the marketing guy.
Yeah.
That guy inspires me too, because like he's credited now for like revolutionizing the way you market like sneakers and like that kind of thing. And so after watching that movie, I kind of like started researching him a little bit. And so that's really cool, because like Nike, they obviously kill it with like how they market their product. So yeah. Rylie, let's go.
Mine's pretty simple. I mean, good music. I listen to a lot of Code of the Friend, if any of you guys know, but like very, like just the lyrics are very powerful. Any creative, I think, would probably resonate. Doing that and going on walks, like to spark creativity, and just honestly being in the sunshine. I got a sunburn yesterday from going to the park, so I think that is a successful week to me. Finally having the sun out in here in Iowa. So
yeah, cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Cool. Thank you for being on.
Yeah, appreciate you having on.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, that was a great
good.
episode.
Cool.
It's been awesome.
Well, this has been another episode of the Creatives POV podcast. We'll see you in the next one.